It's Friday, June 23rd, 2017. I'm your host, Sarah Mantle. We have a great show in store for you today. First up is our weekly arts and culture segment. This week we chat with plein air painter Betsy Payne-Cook. Then we'll learn more about clamming classes for kids with Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau. And finally, we'll get a look at recent renovations to the Craigville Beach Bathhouse. All of that on this episode of Barnstable Today. But first, let's go ahead and get a look at today's top headlines. The Hyannis Fire Department has a new fire chief. The Board of Fire Commissioners voted unanimously last night to appoint Barnstable Deputy Fire Chief Peter Burke to the post. Burke was selected after a 9-month search that included a 2-day assessment exercise. Burke will replace former Hyannis Fire Chief Harold Brunel, who retired last year. Cape Cod kicked off the first day of summer with a weather prediction from the region's beloved hard-shelled mollusk, Doug the quahog. At the 9th annual Cape Cod Quahog Day, Doug and his human sidekick Johnny Quahog arrived in traditional style, accompanied by the Quahog Secret Service. This year, Doug arrived by banana boat to the beach of the Blue Water Resort in South Yarmouth. NBC Boston meteorologist Michael Page emceed the event and happily agreed with Doug's prediction.
The average temperature will be 77 degrees this summer. With 77 days of great sunshine. Try saying that fast.
Sevens are wild, so 77 is our number this year. I like it. Let's give a big round of applause to that.
Nice job, Doug.
Doug, we like what we hear. That's terrific.
The crowd continued the celebration over complimentary seafood appetizers provided by the Blue Water Resort, mugging for photos with Doug and Johnny, and of course grooving to the sounds of Pants in Paradise. Let's hope Doug's prognostication is correct and we have a great summer to hit the beat. What a fun day that was. The Planning Board will again discuss a proposed 33-unit condo complex at its meeting next Monday. The condo complex would be located on School Street and South Street along the Hyannis Harbor. The applicant, Shoestring Properties, is requesting several waivers from zoning and general ordinances. The Planning Board meets Monday, June 26th at 7 p.m. Well, State Representative Randy Hunt hopes to help residents find ways to save on their cable bill. Hunt will host 2 cord-cutting workshops next Tuesday at Cape Cod Community College. The workshops will help residents find alternatives to cable or satellite TV that can save some big money. The hour-long seminar will be held Tuesday, June 27th. The first session will be held at 3:30 and the second will be held at 6. Both workshops will be held in the Tilden Arts Center. Well, up next, we're going to chat with plein air painter Betsy Payne-Cook for this week's Arts and Culture segment. So Betsy, thank you so much for joining me today. So excited to talk about your work. You are a plein air painter.
Yes.
What does it mean for us who maybe are not artists and didn't have an art education? What does that mean?
Well, you know, plein air painting really just involves taking your art materials and going outside, painting on location. You know, the whole idea of plein air painting is something that, you know, I just absolutely love. You know, back in my 20s, I did a lot of backpacking, camping in my 30s, and, you know, to be able to go outside and actually, you know, take my pastels, I have, you know, specific materials that I use when I'm outdoors, you know, a couple of different easels depending on the location, and, you know, it's just a wonderful experience to be able to capture what you're looking at. So, you know, the plein air, you know, outdoor painting, painting on location, they all mean the same thing, but the reality of it is you are that's your studio, you are outside.
Well, I always say I like to get outside. I think I need to get outside. It's just something that it helps us all feel better. So I think it's inspiration for artwork. It must be almost therapeutic in a way to get outside and paint and be one with nature.
Yeah, and that, you know, and it's you know, I think when you first begin, because I also teach you know, plein air painting classes, and sometimes people are a little reluctant because there may be other people around, or what happens if somebody comes up and talks to me? What happens if they see my artwork and it's not very good? And I'd say, you know, the majority of times what people they wish that they were you. They love that idea of seeing an artist painting outside. And I think you have to suspend your
self-criticism.
Yes, that, your expectations that it's going to be a painting, because a lot of it actually has to do with capturing what you're seeing. And if you get too bogged down with, is this going to be a good painting or not, then you kind of lose the essence of why you're out there. Some artists use their plein air paintings as studies. Some people wind up framing their plein air paintings. It really just depends on the artist. And I do a combination of both. Yes, the ones that turn out good get framed, and the ones that I really was just seeking the moment, the colors, the atmosphere, the wind. They just become a jumping point for a studio painting, or I go back again another time.
And you know what is so funny about art is that everyone has a different view.
Yes,
so
true,
I could look
true.
at a painting and love it,
Yes.
and someone else could look at a painting and say, "What do you see in that?"
I know, it is true.
So
true.
it's all about your personal preference and
Yeah.
what you like. So I think it's so interesting. When did you start painting, and how old were you?
Well, my longest memory was kindergarten, and then I was lucky enough to, in the time of movie theaters and winning tickets, I got 2 tickets for coloring in the Mary Poppins photograph. So those are the early memories. But I had an inspirational high school art teacher, Joyce Keenan, who I keep in touch with her, and it's just wonderful to have had the experience of someone in those formative years of being a teenager, feeling as if I like art, am I any good at it? And that was with her, is she wasn't judgmental, and she pushed you to do different things. And I think those earlier pieces in your life, I think, make a huge difference to how you approach it. And I've had times where I have not painted as much as I wanted to, and on a serious level, the last 12, 15 years I've really been working at painting more. And after having retired from a full-time job, I now can spend more time painting. So it's, it comes around.
Yeah, there's a season for everything, right?
There is.
So thinking about that early educational experience where you had a teacher that was so inspiring to you, and now you're an art teacher as well. You teach art classes for others. What made you really want to share your passion?
Well, I think there's 2 things about being a teacher. And in the art world, the way I look at it is I want to share what I enjoy. So one way to do that is to teach other people, and all different levels. People that are brand new beginners, novices, to people that have more experience, and just experimenting, trying new things. If they're new to the medium, just being able to give them the support so that they understand how to use pastels. The other thing too is, as I find as a teacher, that it helps me improve myself, because what I'll do is I'll investigate new things for the students. I will try new things. And although I'm doing it one for myself, I know it's something that I can pass on. So, just a teacher at heart, I guess.
Love it. Well, where can anyone watching, and they're saying, I want to see more of Betsy's work, where can they see your work, or where could they find out about any classes you're teaching?
Oh, okay. My work is at Gallery Art Trio, which is part of the High Arts District. And the gallery is located at 50 Pearl Street, which is the corner of South and Pearl. I also have, my paintings on my website, which I also sell from my home studio. And then I do have some smaller paintings that I have at Katuitt Fresh Market in Katuitt. It's a wonderful little shop, and they feature my little minis, little 4x4s and 5x7s. But and then I teach at the Falmouth Art Center, and the Cultural Center of Cape Cod.
Oh, wonderful. Great. Well, thank you for joining us today, telling us all about your artwork and
thank you.
your passion and how you share that with others. We really appreciate it and can't wait to see more of your work.
Okay, thank you very
so
much.
Now we're going to learn more about clamming classes for kids with Natural Resource Officer Amy Croteau. So Amy, very excited to talk about the upcoming clamming classes for kids. When did you guys start giving these classes for kids?
So I believe this is our 14th annual. Now, I've only been employed with the town for a decade, so I started doing it with Chris Clark, who was the shellfish technician at the time, in 2009. And after she moved on, I thought that it was such a valuable program that I've continued it along with our now shellfish technician, Elizabeth Lewis.
So fun, because I think so many kids, even kids who were born here and grew up here, not everybody knows how about clamming and shellfishing.
Oh yeah.
So really an important skill to have, especially when we live here. What is it like for kids who come to the class?
So occasionally you will get a child that shows up and just wants absolutely nothing to do with it, and that by all means can happen. Not everybody likes shellfishing, but by and large, when kids show up the first time they find their first quahog, it's just their face is beaming, they're so excited, and they typically will continue on with the shellfishing for at least another 20 or 30 minutes before their attention span is, completely spent. Occasionally we'll get a handful of children that are just really robust and into it, and they'll stay for a couple hours. But most of the time kids really enjoy it, and so do the parents. A lot of parents bring their kids as an excuse for them to learn to shellfish, because oftentimes the parents are also novices.
It's so true. It's so true, but so fun when and like you were mentioning, that accomplishment that they feel when they start. It's such a special feeling when you really go hunting for your own food. So kind of cool to teach them this. What do they need to bring with them?
So they should dress prepared to get wet. They'll be in the water if they're digging quahogs, and they'll be getting wet on the shoreline. If they're digging steamers, they'll be muddy. The water's warm enough that if they want to, they can wear bathing suits, but that of course is up to the guardian the day of. I always suggest that they wear water shoes because it is rocky terrain, and some of the rocks are sharp. And definitely gloves. Small gardening gloves go a long way for protecting small, fragile hands when they're digging through the sediment.
Yeah, some of those shells can be kind of tough and sharp in places.
Absolutely.
Great. Other than that, do they need to bring anything? I know typically, if you're going to go shellfishing, you have to have that shellfishing permit to take any shellfish away with you.
Right.
So will they be able to still take some shellfish away with them?
They will. So oftentimes the parents will get a permit for the class, but if they don't, we always have enough volunteers that show up and are willing to share their catch for the week with whoever is there. So anybody that collects shellfish the day of the class is able to take them home. So they should bring at least a container to bring the shellfish home with them, whether it's a cooler or a bag. If they're planning on traveling to another place after the class before they go home, they should make sure that they have ice packs so they can keep their shellfish cool.
It's kind of early in the morning, but there's a reason for that. Why are the classes being held so early?
We always say the tide waits for no man. And it's true in this case too. It's not waiting for kids. We were looking at the tides throughout the month of June, and they just weren't that great. Oftentimes our best tides are around either our full or new moons, and are often in the evening or in the morning. And so these in particular tides happen to be morning tides because they just seemed like the best opportunity to get the most shoreline available for people to use.
Wow, so such a fun experience. Are these free to attend, these classes?
They are, yeah. We have not had to start charging for them yet. Although they're popular, there always seems to be just a reasonable amount of people that attend them. It hasn't gotten out of control.
And where will they be held? I know they're taking place this Saturday, June 24th at 7 a.m. and Sunday, June 25th at 7 a.m. Where will they be held?
They will be held at Bridge Street Landing in Osterville. It's a very popular recreational only area, and it's an easy place for people to access because there's a humongous parking lot. We do, for people who are out of town, make arrangements with parking compliance, so the day of the class within that 3-hour window, they typically don't issue tickets to people that don't have stickers.
Wonderful, very important. And then I missed a date. How could I do that? There's another clamming class Wednesday, June 28th. That's at 9:30 a.m.
Yes, it's
so
a little
if you're
bit
maybe
more
not
reasonable.
an early bird, that might be the one for you.
Exactly, yeah.
And I want to talk to you too about, before I let you go, about this very exciting thing. You're going to have your 5th annual Diamondback Terrapin release coming up this month at the Sandy Neck Gatehouse, June 27th.
Yeah.
This is very exciting. Tell me a little bit about the program.
So we have Diamondback terrapins in Massachusetts. They're a unique federally threatened species of turtle. They're the only brackish water, meaning that they live in water that's a little bit salty, a little bit fresh terrapins. So they're found exclusively on our coastlines and inside of our estuaries. We have a population that lives in Barnstable Harbor, and oftentimes when they nest, they will nest within the off-road corridor at Sandy Neck, and the weight of vehicles traveling over them would crush the nests that are there. Because they're protected, we have a special permit from Fish and Wildlife that allows us to harvest those nests and move them to a safe dune. When we have those hatchlings that come out from those eggs, we then take those hatchlings from those moved nests and give them out to classrooms to raise for the winter as part of our Head Start program. In nature, only 1 out of every 100 of these individuals will survive to adulthood, and so by raising them over the winter, giving them special UV lights and yummy food and lots of attention, we send them back into the wild at the age of 1 at about the size of a 3-year-old, which is much more difficult to predate, giving them essentially a head start at survival.
A much better chance. And not only that, but it sounds like this is really a great educational experience for the students as well.
It is. And unfortunately, because they're in the classrooms and because you can't just invite the general public out to a private classroom release, we often end up annually with a handful of what I call picky eaters. They're the ones that are sort of failing to thrive, the terrapins that I don't give out to classrooms, and I take on the responsibility of raising them at our office. Should they survive, we had 4 this year, Lucky, Last Chance, Diamond, and Crimpy, named so because he has a deformed shell, that have become just stellar terrapins, and so they're ready to go back out into the wild.
Are you ready to send them back out into the wild? Or are you going to miss them when they go?
You know, I used to in like the first year or 2 when I released them, but I tend to get a whole new slew of them back in September, so I'm not without them for very long.
Well, wonderful. And the public can attend this if they want to, and they can learn a bunch about the program. I think Sean Cordes will be there giving a little talk as well. So lots of information happening.
Yeah, the plan is on the 27th to go to the gatehouse. When you get to the gatehouse, just say that you're there for the public terrapin release. If you don't have a sticker, they will not charge you to park for the release, and you'll drive up to the upper lot. You'll then walk down to the gatehouse. Everyone will meet at the yellow conservation gate that's across the street from the gatehouse, and then Sean will give a brief description of the Head Start program, how it started, why we do this, and then we'll walk everybody about 10 minutes down the marsh trail, which is sandy, so dress comfortably for that, and to some of the tidal pools where we'll release them into the wild.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Amy, so much for
You're
telling us
welcome.
all about clamming classes for kids. One last question about the clamming classes.
Sure.
Do you need to sign up in advance, or can you just show up?
If anybody wants to sign up in advance, they're more than welcome to. They can email me, amy.croteau, CROTEAU, at town.barnstable.ma.us, or they can just show up the day of, as many people do.
Great. Awesome. Well, thanks for telling us all about these really great programs we have available to us. We really appreciate it and look forward to chatting with you again in the near future.
Excellent. Take care.
Well, recent improvements were made to the Craigville Beach bathhouse, so we're going to check those out. So excited to be here with you at Craigville Beach, Patty. It's summertime, and there were recently some really great renovations made to the Craigville Beach bathhouse. Tell me about the renovations.
Well, so far we've done 2 phases. The first phase being the exterior. Last year they redid the exterior of the bathhouse and painted and got it up, and redid the roof, and we also put on the cupola that was here forever, and it's all lighted, and it's beautiful. It just adds a lot of class, and it's capey looking. And then this year we did massive renovations inside to the restrooms and the changing rooms. Now these are dramatic changes. From the exterior, you don't have any idea that the changes happened. And the entrance is now on the west gate side, on the west side of the beach. There is no longer an entrance on the east side. So when you come to the beach, if you're parked down near the CBA beach, you got to go all the way around the bathhouse to get to the bathroom. So that's the only change. The third phase, a couple of things will happen in the third phase. We'll be getting changing rooms that'll be on the exterior part of the facility, and then we're also working towards getting a tight tank, which for our septic system. So it'll be a much more green facility.
And, you know, walking through the bathhouse today, seeing, it seems like there's so much more room for lifeguard training, group meetings, and I noticed, too, the first aid room. So
Yes.
these are all really important changes.
Right, and everything that happened outside of the bathrooms was actually a gift from DPW, and you know, they've maneuvered some of their funds around, but they were able to do it in-house. We didn't go out of house to do the projects that they accomplished, such as the storage room, which is the old ladies' room. So we're able to actually move our gear in and out of the building now without it banging on doors. So we'll have longer longevity with all of our equipment because of the way. When the building was built, there were no lifeguard. There were no rescue boards in any facility. That's not what was utilized for rescues. A boat was actually, and the boats used to be tied to the lifeguard tower, so they never were brought into a facility. So with this, we've updated the actual use of the building, but also saved and updated so that we could use our equipment, our safety equipment that is now. We never used to have Moby chairs on the beach. You know, those weren't here in the 20s. We didn't have handicap accessible. I don't even think anything was handicap accessible back then. But now we have handicap bathrooms, handicap accessible, you know, chairs to get out on the beach. So, you know, we've really changed things, and the whole operation's changed.
Yeah, it makes it much more efficient, updates it to the current standard, because like you said, when was this building built?
Well, the first building was built in the 20s, but that blew down with a hurricane, and they just redid it and added a little more a facility for the lifeguards, because the lifeguards changing room used to be over what is now the lifeguard training room. And when we go inside, you'll be able to see the names that are from the way back when.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool.
So have the staff, I don't know if they've gotten started yet, but have they commented on some of the renovations this year?
Oh, well, they love the fact that they feel like they're in a clean environment. It's not that it was dirty, it was just so old. And, you know, even the painting, it was really challenging. You know, the DPW would come in and they'd paint, but there was so much paint that they actually needed to take all the paint off, which now they've done most of that to the facility. And they put beadboard, they took the beadboard and used it. The changing rooms used to be all beadboard. So they saved all that beadboard and they used it in the rest of the facility. So it's not like anything went to waste. They used as much of the old building, but updated it with it.
So cool. Love it. And I love to keep that character, and it feels like the same building, but it's very different. And you mentioned handicap access. There's a great handicap ramp by the front door. That's great to have.
Right, yeah. And they can get in and out of the building, no problem now. Also, they changed the showers. The showers used to be affixed, and they are still at most of our buildings. They're affixed to the bathhouse. And then the pull kind, and what happens is those stay on, so we were wasting water. So now we have a big pole. We accommodate more people on this pole, and they shut off. You know, it's not like we got the water running all the time, and especially when we're not here. You know, at night somebody goes in, takes a shower, and then the water stays on. So now we don't have that happening. So it's all in all, it's just a great change.
And on top of that, this lovely shade structure behind us was donated this year by the Glenna Cole Fund for Hope. What a wonderful addition to the beach.
Yeah, so it makes everything seem brand new, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a whole new beach here at Craigville. I think that visitors and residents are both going to really appreciate the renovations and additions here at Craigville Beach. I
agree. I totally agree. We're so lucky. I mean, if we had replaced the entire bathhouse, we would have spent a lot more money. It was $480,000, which sounds like a lot, which I know is a lot. I couldn't afford it for me, but if we had gone and tore this down and rebuilt, it would have been millions of dollars, and we would have had to go up 17 feet. The character would be gone from the facility.
Right, absolutely. Well, congratulations. It looks fantastic. We're so happy for you, and wish you a very successful season here at Craigville.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patty.
The whole town benefits.
That's right. Now let's find out what's happening around town in today's community calendar. The Hyannis Harbor Hawks will take on the Bourne Braves tonight at McKeon Park in Hyannis. The game begins at 6. If you can't make it tonight, the Harbor Hawks will play the Chatham Anglers Sunday at 3, also at McKeon Park. Games are always free to attend, but donations are greatly appreciated. The Marsden's Mills Library is hosting a Books and Booze library cruise this Saturday. The Highline Harbor Cruise will include live music, a cash bar, hors d'oeuvres, and a silent auction. Tickets are just $30 in advance at the Marsden's Mills Public Library or $35 at the door. The Books and Booze Library Cruise will be held this Saturday, June 24th at 6. Boarding begins at 5:45. Well, there are no board, committee, or commission meetings today. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be back Monday with another great show for you. For Barnstable Today, I'm Sarah Mantle.